All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Degenerate NFL podcast. And we have real, actual football to talk about, and a lot of it, really, a lot of
Yes.
really good football, and also a lot of bad football, as it tends to be in week one. Zach, unfortunately, you know this better than any of us currently sitting here. Um, he's a Dolphins fan. That's all I think I really need to say about that. We'll get to that, I'm sure. Uh, but no, it was a lot of fun kicking off the NFL this week. A lot of things we're going to be talking about, especially kind of what we're looking forward to next week already, but just kind of how it goes in the NFL. But Dalton, Zach, how was your viewing experience overall? I'll let you go last, Zach. I know that yours was probably not as good as the rest of ours. Dalton, how'd you feel about it?
I mean, as far as Raiders go, it was, I guess, good. Like,
Gino, man, we're
it's
pretty
great.
good. Pretty good.
Yeah, but
Gino was dealing.
but maybe Pete Carroll's kid is not an NFL offensive line coach.
Yeah, that's the
I
the
mean,
one thing.
they didn't look like they'd ever seen a stunt before. I mean, it was really, really bad. Like, and it was clearly like a coaching thing. Like, they weren't getting out talented on the offensive line. They just couldn't. They just didn't know what they were doing. And Pete Carroll basically said this in his press conference, but would not acknowledge the elephant in the room that, like, hey, yeah, maybe your son shouldn't be on this staff. I'm at a point where I'm ready to say Pete needs to call up his former Seahawks offensive line coach, former Raiders head coach, Tom Cable, to come in and take the reins. And you know it's bad when you want Tom Cable to be on your staff.
Fair enough. I can't really argue with you there. Again, I'll let Zach go last here in a second. My viewing experience was very interesting.
Yeah.
Let's just say that the Steelers Jets game was not how I anticipated it going. I think I had
Not at all.
the final score in my prediction was 20-14 Steelers. That became impossible like 2 quarters into this thing. So I would just say that I'm overall happy because the thing that I expect to happen is the Steelers defense won't be that bad all year. But I also thought the Steelers offense might never be quite that good at any point this year. So I'll take my victories where I can get them. Also, Chris Boswell, argue with the wall, is the best kicker in the league. I don't care about that guy in Dallas. He's great and all. I'm not taking anyone else besides Chris Boswell currently. So that's my thoughts on that.
I am so happy that NFL Red Zone exists, because
Yeah.
it let me know that I was not missing a damn thing. Because I just started up as an F2M writer for PFN, which means first to market. So
Mhm.
like whenever anybody's injured, whenever anybody's like not doing well, I'm like one of those people that gets like their like pieces up like in the like 5-10 minutes, 15 minutes to like have something that's there,
Yeah.
and then like beef it up, whatever. So like I was focused, and I'm sitting here and I'm like, oh man, there's not a lot of updates on Red Zone about Miami. And I'm seeing stuff. Obviously, I'm plugged in on Twitter. My Twitter is definitely Dolphins heavy. And as you can see, to a tag of a losers, I wasn't hopeful from the jump with the offseason with how it was, and for them to be that unprepared, it was astonishing. And the only thing I will say is, to McDaniel's credit, he is 100% correct. It was not only on Tua. He is correct there. It was a failure at all phases of the team. Like, you let Daniel Jones dice you up in the secondary and look like he was the best thing that has been in Indianapolis since Peyton Manning. Like, I don't think they've had a time where they've scored on every offensive drive since Peyton Manning. And like, it was interesting. And then furthermore, to Dalton's point, like, I've had some positivity as a Raiders fan this week, but man, to be a Patriots fan and to still see Miami favored next week after the absolute dud that they put up,
Yeah, I don't
that's
believe that. I
astonishing.
think that's bad.
Well,
Bad
they
luck.
are. They are.
No,
Because
I'm not saying
it's a
that
home
it's
game.
not. I'm saying that I don't think that the betting market is wrong on that one.
Yeah.
To
Yep.
do
Oh yeah,
that.
no, it's 100% wrong, because I don't know what there was to look at in that game for Miami where you had anything to hold. Maybe A-Chan, because like he's the only one in garbage time, and he's the only one that looks somewhat like presentable. But like Tyreek Hill was already pissed. Waddle went down and came back.
He was really
thankfully came
mad.
back.
He might actually go hit something after that game. I don't know, but we'll see.
Yeah,
You know,
don't let's not
everyone stay away from him for the
talk
next
about that.
couple of days, guys. Just stay out of his way. If you just see him,
Yeah.
out and about, just walk the other way, man. I don't know.
So like, and I think when
Anyway.
you look at the overall like outcome of this week, they really were the biggest disappointment. And like, yes, was there a lot of expectations coming in from the offseason? No, but they couldn't do anything. And like, yeah, they scored 8 points. They scored a touchdown and 2-point conversion. But I think their 8 points look so hollow, even compared to the Giants' 6 points, because like, what were we expecting from New York? Like we weren't necessarily expecting much from them. There wasn't much positivity there. Like it wasn't like there was like a lot coming out from the Giants camp and all that stuff. Like maybe if Dart maybe comes in eventually down the line, but like I think that was like the 8 points just looks so hollow. It like yeah, you scored a touchdown in garbage time at the end of the fourth quarter when like it looked like you were going to get shut out. At least you didn't get shut out, but like what did that touchdown mean? What did it really do in the long run to when you looked so horrible?
Absolutely. Let's get into the most interesting things from week one. I'm going to let you start off, Zach. What was one of your three? We're each going to have three main things to talk about in this section here. What was the first thing that you thought was most interesting from the week one slate?
How incredible rookie wide receiver Emeka Ibuka looked, just seamlessly transitioning into this Tampa Bay offense. Like he had he had the early second quarter touchdown and then the one that sealed the game. And it was just amazing to see. And you heard a lot coming out from camp, but maybe it's not necessarily interesting, like how great he was. And I mean, at this point, Ohio State is established as the wide receiver U. Like there's no doubt about it. But just how seamlessly he was able to fit into the game plan, take over, and it's like they're not missing anything. They're fine. They're good. And then once Chris Godwin comes back, that offense is going to be insane. Like they're like what is stopping them outside of I do think that I'll get into something else later that I'll talk about later if you guys don't steal it from me. That was interesting. But like Tampa looked great. They looked awesome. And the rookie contribution is incredible.
Yeah, I obviously want to hear your thoughts on this too, Dalton. But the thing with Ibuka for me, and I think you and I felt kind of similarly about him in the draft process, was like didn't necessarily think he would be the best rookie from this class receiver, but he was the guy I was most expecting to be good out of this receiver class. Like he's one of those guys that is as high floor as it gets because of the mental side of things. And also he has enough physical talent to make good on all the mental things he's already great at, right? I mean, the story came out, from I know Evans said that he basically called a shot like, hey, if we do this, I'm going to score on this play to win the game, and he did it. Did the same thing in the national title, like, hey, not him doing it, but he said, if we throw this ball to Smith on this corner, it's gonna seal the game. Like that's the type of player that we're dealing with here, someone who already is seeing the game at a level that a lot of NFL players never see the game at, frankly, in my opinion. So he has a chance, if he can continue to be a part of this offense as a rookie and moving forward, to be definitely one of the smartest wide receivers playing in the game, but also one of the most effective because of what he's able to do as an athlete as well. So very much interested in that as well. Zach, it's a good shout out. Dalton, any thoughts on Egbuka as well?
I mean, like you said best, like highest floor in this entire wide receiver class, I think, and it's showing that he's like. I think last year there were a lot of receivers that we expected to immediately step in and be really productive, and we didn't see it last year, with the exception of Neighbors and Thomas. But a lot of the others really kind of took a little bit to get going. I think Ibuka is one of those guys where it's like you just know right away he's going to step in and dominate because he plays the position really well. Like it's not a matter of traits and then having to make those traits translate. He just knows how to run routes and figure out where he needs to be. And then he, of course, does have the physical traits needed to play the position at a high level on top of that.
So I was checking this because I'm sure some rookies' names will come up in this show. He was on our consensus top 50, Dalton 18th, and was the second pure receiver, third receiver behind Hunter, if we're counting him as a receiver, which so far sounds like he is mostly a receiver. So for a reason, right? Like there's guys below him that like I had Golden number one receiver. We'll see how that plays out long term, but like in terms of like who's going to be able to play the game right away, Luka certainly was the top of that list. Dalton, what was your first thing that you thought was most interesting from week one?
So I'm sorry if I steal this one from you, Shane, but my biggest
is it Steelers Jets related? Because it's not me then. You will
gotcha. It is Rodgers. Rodgers turning back the clock. I mean, like I was watching the Raiders game, and then all of a sudden I saw like a highlight of Rodgers, and like, what is this? Like this looks like Aaron Rodgers from a decade ago. And it was pretty impressive. I mean, I was really surprised. And I mean, one, not just because of how old he is, but two, like outside of DK, you know, the receiving corp's not great there. And then also, this is an Arthur Smith offense, not really known for these types of games. It was really shocking.
Yeah, so I'll give my thoughts on it because I don't have them in any of my stuff really because I didn't want to do that. One, because I want to reserve some time to let this team simmer a little bit before I go too crazy. Plus, you know, selfishly got to save the ideas, the thoughts for when I write about this team. So I got to save that. No, that's not really why. But with Rodgers, I think there's a lot of positive signs. I think the numbers and everything don't really matter that much to me, especially in week one. It's more about he looked like a more mobile version of himself than we've seen in the past couple of years, especially obviously last year where he's coming off the Achilles. Because right now, at least, this offensive line is not doing him any favors. Like they have got to figure out the protection with Broderick Jones. Gave up 3 sacks in that game, and they were all terrible. Like he had some of the worst plays week one. And ironically, one of the other tackles that played worse than him was their left tackle last year, Dan Moore Jr. over the Titans. So like, it's just not been very good at left tackle for this team for a while, and it's got to get better. But I do think this version of Rodgers, even though he did have, you know, his lowest average depth of target, a lot of passes that they had to throw because again there was no protection there. But the receivers made good plays. Calvin Austin was surprisingly productive. I'm hoping he can be kind of their de facto wide receiver too. And in general, things worked much better than they should have, considering the run game was non-existent and the pass blocking wasn't great. So hopeful, but we'll definitely see about that. Anything you want to add on Rodgers there, Zach?
Well, I think, you know, you talk about the problems with Broderick Jones, but I think overall his offensive line situation is better than it was last year, and that
probably, especially the interior should be good. So.
Yes, and that I think that makes all the difference for Rodgers with what he was with the Jets compared to what he is this year, because like there was nothing there last year, and he was fighting for his life, and like. I wouldn't necessarily say that he was playing bad last year.
Down the stretch, especially, he got to a point where, and he did look more mobile even the back half of last year. So we're seeing now what that could look like.
Exactly. Yeah, and now a year plus off the Achilles, like you're looking a lot better. I think it's promising looking forward. I really do. And it was telling that, like we were talking about, the offense is what won this game. And I mean, even though Jalen Ramsey had that last hit, like the defense kind of let them down a little bit. Although, like, I mean, I can get into that a little bit later because that could be one of my interesting things. But like the Steelers didn't play bad. It was a good game.
It was a lot of fun. My first most interesting thing here. You spent a lot of time on this, but I think it's pretty just straightforward. The Ben Johnson, Caleb Williams pairing has a long way to go at this point still. That Vikings Bears Monday night game was chaotic to say the least for both teams. I think the Vikings obviously handled the struggles of their quarterback early, were able to get him settled in. He did make some really nice throws. I think JJ has a long way to go. Obviously, it's his first start of his career. I'm not going to judge him too harshly at this point. But he did make plays down the stretch. He did show the resilience that you kind of saw with him in Michigan. Caleb still looks very chaotic and erratic. And I think that is something that has to be honed into some level. And he has to be more willing and able to just run the play as called. And there wasn't a ton of chances for him to do that. They really got the blitz going with Flores down the stretch. Like they really heated him up. He did make some nice plays, especially in the first half, but there's still just a little too much of the sailing balls over the middle, too many misses that are kind of inexplicable. That stuff does have to improve, I think, for this offense to be what it can be, which I do think could be a really good one as early as the middle of the season. Like I'm not willing to say that it's not going to work all of a sudden. It's one game against very good defense, but it is a little concerning that he looks a lot like he did last year early in the season.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely still looks like a rookie. I think I think he kind of saw what the game plan is going to be for him, just to constantly put him under pressure.
Yeah.
And expect him to make mistakes. Because, I mean, Brian Flores basically became Coach Yost from Remember the Titans last night. You blitz all night.
Yeah. It's just, again, when you get to a point where you can tell the quarterback is unsettled, if you heat him up, that's what's going to happen is he's going to make mistakes. He's going to miss throws. And again, is every defense they play, you're going to be able to do that? No. I'd say almost none of them will. But it is something to watch moving forward, and we'll talk about it for sure. Any other thoughts on that one, Zach?
Well, I think that's where he's going to rely on a couple of good weeks here where he cannot have to worry about that. We'll see what happens with the next couple of weeks. But, I mean, after what we saw with some of these teams, I don't know if they're going to give the biggest, like, stressor to Caleb Boone. So maybe they'll be able to, like, over the next couple of weeks, like, get things ironed out.
Settle in a little bit.
It is also just
huge,
that it, like you said, it was a very weird game. That entire Monday night game was very just strange.
Yeah, it was interesting to say the least. We'll see ultimately what happens with that, and I think next week, and I'm not to spoil it, but one of my things to watch out for is going to be related to that team next week. We'll see how things play out for Ben Johnson here early in the season. We'll just go back around the horn. I'll give my second one here. And Zach, I know you'll have plenty to say about this one as well. The Dolphins may be the worst team in the NFL, at least in vibes. Like, I'm not ready to say that they're definitely the bona fide worst team in the NFL. The Saints still are certainly up there. The Giants could certainly be in that conversation too, depending on how that offense can operate moving forward. But the Dolphins, from a vibes perspective, on top of what we saw against the Colts, and Dalton, I want for this Colts team to be this good. I don't know if we can say that with how bad the Dolphins were in that game. Like, I want to see it continue. Obviously, I hope that happens for him, for Jones and for Steichen especially. I would like him as a coach. But that Dolphins team looked about as dead on the field as I think any football team can look this early in the season, obviously being week one. When I watched that game back, this is one of the games I watched after like the condensed replays came out on NFL Plus that you can watch. Tua specifically, it was a masterclass in the things that are bad about Tua as a quarterback, the things that are a hindrance about him. They all came out in droves. And when that happens, it's very clear that the offense has no recourse when that's happening. And if this isn't the beginning of the end for this regime, I don't know if it's possible for them to get fired. This feels like a mid-season firing waiting to happen. And that's just kind of, I think, one of the interesting things with this week one.
Yeah. You can go ahead, Dalton.
So, I mean, it's just it'll be very interesting to see if they can bounce back this week. I do think one thing that might help this week against New England is if Christian Gonzalez is still out.
Yeah.
New England secondary looked rough this past week. So if this just becomes, if Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle are just running free down the field, they might be able to just sneak by in this one and maybe get things back going in the right direction. But I mean, if they drop this one, I think that's going to kind of show we're probably in for a long year with them. And it's not going to be long before Tyreek Hill is just going to have to be traded away because he's going to be too disgruntled to keep away. And once that happens and you start letting people force their way out, that's the beginning of the end.
Yeah. It was tough to watch that. And it's bad when fans are literally sitting there trying to like different plays to be like, oh no, Tua got his bell rung and he had a concussion. That's what happened, because like I've been seeing that so often, and like, not that you can't not count it out because of what has happened with his career. But like, I just don't. The bigger issue is it's not even just the offense, though. Is like the defense looked not the front seven. The front seven looked fine. They got some pressure. I actually was like kind of nice. Bad. Front seven looked fine, but oh my lord.
Well, we knew that, though, is the thing.
Cooked.
I think the biggest issue, Zach, for me, not to cut you off, is that this team looked exactly as I expected on defense, and the offense was the worst version of what it can be, at the same time. And that's just so soul-crushingly bad that, again, I can't really help but look at that team like that's the worst team going right now.
I don't know what gets better with Tua, with, again, the same issues have cropped up. Where is the investment in the offensive line outside of a second round pick? And like, yeah, but that's not like, he's not starting.
I don't know.
Like,
it.
There's nothing, and that's where like we look at this, and low key, the more I look back on the situation, I feel bad for McDaniel, because like he was put into a impossible situation in a franchise that has never invested in the most important positions, which is the offensive and defensive line. And like, to a degree, they've started, and like, to an extent, the defensive line is okay, and your pressure is okay. Your passing pressure is okay. It's not awful. There's been some investment, but the offensive line has nothing. Like, you have nothing. And it's been the same story for 14, 15 years.
Yeah.
So like, it's not even like you can sit here and say, oh, well, this is a fault of McDaniel. No, this is front office, and this is ownership, and this is where something else has to change here. And until that does, like, okay, cycle through your head coaches. I'm sure Chris Greer's fourth head coach is going to get this right this time.
Yeah.
I think you could make the point. Sorry, I think you could make the case that McDaniel, since he's been in Miami, has not been able to run the offense that he probably wants to. I mean, coming from San Francisco, it's heavy run game, good offensive line play. Like, he hasn't been able to run the offense that they were running in San Francisco.
Yeah, but like, no team could possibly want to exist in the world that the Dolphins do offensively. I understand the fireworks are great when they're playing a team that just simply can't cover for shit and just leave guys running free in the middle of the field on these crossing routes and these digs and all this stuff, these in breakers. And Tua can just throw to a spot, and he knows his receiver is going to be there because they're not getting disrupted. It's great. It's phenomenal to watch. Like, everyone remembers the Broncos game a couple years ago. One of the best offensive showings you'll ever see in the NFL. The problem is when they play a team that has even the slightest understanding of how to disrupt the offense, it all craters apart because they have no recourse. If they can't play that way, it's over. And it's partly the offensive line, obviously. It's also partly the way the quarterback has to operate. But it's when you combine those two things. If it was just one of them, it's like, well, we can pass protect, but Tua might struggle to do things beyond the first 2 seconds of the play. But we can work with it because we can pass protect. Or Tua can do some stuff under pressure. He can do some stuff, but the offensive line just can't block. When it's both, your offense stops existing the second that the defense can actually cover anybody. And that's just what happened in this game, right? And it's probably going to continue to happen more and more because Tyreek isn't the same player, and he's also not just probably interested in playing with his team. He also is more interested in doing other things. We're just not going to talk about that anymore at this point. I already made my one joke about it. And then again, like, the running game, Achane's a really good player. They can't fucking block. So what does it matter? It just doesn't matter how good he is or isn't. They can't block anybody. So, and I'm not saying the Colts are like nobody to block. Like, they have good players on that front four. But if you're that bad against a team that isn't one of the elite defensive lines in the league, you're not going to do any better against the ones you will eventually have to face during the season. It's a mess. That's why I said, like, the vibes are certainly that of the worst team in the league. We'll see if they are ultimately the worst team in the league. They're going to have competition for sure. But it certainly feels that way right now. And if I was a Dolphins fan, again, sorry, Zach, I would certainly be just counting down till we get whatever pick we get in the draft this year. So that's kind of what I'm expecting. But
Yeah,
Hey,
that actually the
again-
competition for sorry, Zach.
Well, I was gonna say, if we're not the worst team in the league, I mean, I don't see any other team that was held scoreless in the quarter.
Fair.
And that was garbage time. So
also, it was a
Like-
4th and 11 dump off pass.
it was a 4th and 11 halfback swing. Like, what are you talking about? What are you?
Hey,
what
you
are
can't get
talking
intercepted
about?
on a halfback swing when there's no one there. So there's.
But
that.
that's
No.
not a 4th and 11 play that's set up to succeed.
Oh, you don't have to tell me, Zach. I know. Don't worry.
So,
You
like,
get some
well,
of that.
We're talking about
It's just stupid. Like you said, if you don't have the rushing lanes and you don't have the pass blocking, like, what's the point? And the defense can only hold up so long, but then they can't hold up because there's no secondary. So what are you supposed to do? Because you made Daniel Jones look like an offensive mastermind, which he's not. Sorry, Colts fans. I don't want to break your heart, but
Shane Steichen might be.
Shane Steichen might
Oh.
be, but
yeah.
We'll get to that.
Yeah, no, it's not good. It's not good.
What's your second thing here?
So it's kind of fitting. You guys are talking about what competition the Dolphins have for the worst team in the league. There were two teams really trying to make that case for themselves in the Bengals-Browns game.
Oh, yeah. My goodness.
One of the most hilariously, surprisingly bad games I think I've ever seen. I didn't even watch a ton of it, but then you go and look at the box score, and it's the funniest box score you're ever gonna see. So, Bengals, right? You have Joe Burrow, right? He's pretty good. Probably would have won MVP last year if he had any kind of a team around him. You also have a terrible offensive line, and Chase Brown is your running back. So what do? Give it to him 21 times. Just hilarious. But then that's not even the funniest usage of any player in this game. In the year 2025, Joe Flacco threw the ball 45 times. And the best part is, you'd think that means it was a shootout, right? It was 17-16. What is going on?
So let me tell you a little story, Dalton. First of all, the Browns, by all accounts, should have beat the Bengals in that game.
Yeah,
if they had a kicker who could kick anything. The Bengals in Week 1, over the past 5 years, might have an argument for the worst team in football. Over the past, that specifically, the Week 1 Bengals are probably one of the 5 worst teams in the NFL over the past 5 years, and they keep doing it. And at this point, it feels like a bit. It feels like Zach Taylor is purposely trying to make it hard on the team and try to give them adversity early in the season by just being the worst at his job possible, and everyone else is just going along with it for some reason, like it's a fun thing to do. And this Browns team, I will say the defense looks like it could be closer to the 2023 version, not all the way back to that, but closer to it. But if you're Joe Burrow, and you put up 7 yards in the second half. I want to say that stat again for everybody. They had 7 yards of offense in the second half of the football game against the Browns in 2025. And they won the game, which is the only thing Bengals fans can hold on to, is that at least we didn't lose this one. But they might as well have.
In the league.
Right. They might as well have lost it, because how could you go into the locker room and after that game and feel anything other than, holy shit, the Browns almost beat us in Week 1, and they're quarterbacked by Joe Flacco. That's got to be tough.
And they have no talent. The Browns team is horrible.
Yeah.
Dylan Sampson was the second leading receiver for the Browns.
Yeah. I love that you brought it up, because it's one of those things where it's I want to be surprised by that. I simply can't be because I know how this Bengals team looks in week 1 every year.
But one positive from this game, Harold Fannin.
Yes, Harold Fannin might be the guy that we wanted him to be, guys. We might be there. We might have that to look forward to, if nothing else. Zach, any thoughts on the Bengals Browns that you want to share with us as well?
It was again an interesting game to watch through the lens of Red Zone, because
yeah,
yeah.
Joey Flacco dropping back to back. Sorry.
Yeah. Anyway. But it's going to be interesting to see how the Bengals, because the defense looked pretty good. We'll see what happens over the course of the season, and if like how they wake up and everything and get back to being more Bengals. But they might not be as worse off as people thought.
Potentially on defense, at least, I think that could be pretty good. Now, again, does Joe Flacco allow them to do anything with it against a non-Week 1 Bengals team? We'll see. But something else I want to mention real quick before, Zach, you give us your second interesting thing. The Bengals had 141 total yards of offense in Week 1. I'm pretty sure Aaron Rodgers had that much by himself by like the middle of the third quarter for the Steelers. That's not good if you're the Bengals. I don't think I have to really explain myself on that one. They had under 100 net passing yards when you factor in sack yardage. That's just not possible to me with the Joe Burrow team, except that it is possible because we see it like twice a year at the beginning of the season. So if you're a Bengals fan, I guess I'm glad that you didn't lose this one, I guess. But again, it kind of feels like you took an L on this one. Like, you're a decently easy field goal kick away from being 0-1 right now. So I'm going to take that as you will. Zach, what is your your second most interesting thing? Sorry.
My second most interesting thing, I'm going to go back to the Steelers-Jets game. How impressive Justin Fields looked. And like, look, they lost that game. I mean, I think it was just more of like one of the Week 1 classics. I'm not gonna say that one of these teams lost this game. One of these teams won this game, because just that final breakup by Jalen Ramsey. I mean, that was fantastic. But Justin Fields looked completely different, and I think he's finally found a franchise that says, "Look, you're our guy. You're the guy. You're the one. You want to do this? Let's go. Let's do this." And there's a new sense after having that success last year with Pittsburgh and getting pulled. But like, I think there's more freedom for him in New York to like make a mark, and not like worry about what the consequences will be if like he's responsible for losing a game. And again, it's not like he was responsible for losing this game. Like they didn't lose this game. The Steelers won this game. So I was very, very impressed with how different he looked, and how, I mean, I think positive, even though in a loss, you like the Jets fans have a lot to look forward to this season.
So I'll let you go next on this one.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think you kind of nailed it. Like, he's finally somewhere where he can like just let loose and play and really like not have to worry about like, oh, if I make this mistake, am I going to get benched? He's allowed to just go out there and play. And I think the Jets are going to be, I think it's going to be a little bit before they're any good. But, I mean, the pieces are slowly getting there. And I think they now at least can – I think they can at least see how far things can go with Fields.
Yeah, I'll reserve a lot of my thoughts because one of the things I'm watching out for next week to spoil it, it relates to this team. So I'll talk more about it then. But this performance by Fields and the fact that he was able to play in a way that, again, you could tell that he just was more confident with everything, that he felt more just secure in how he was playing and what he was doing. This is a good example of why I was pounding the table last year for Wilson to stay on the bench for the Steelers. When he was healthy and ready to go again, Russell Wilson talking about, I felt like Fields showed me enough. And it wasn't like it was an insane amount of growth from his Bears days, but it was enough for him like, let's just ride this out and see what happens. right? You're 4-2. Let's see if you could slowly add more stuff to his plate, give him the confidence, let him let it loose a little bit more, and we'll see what happens. Instead, the Steelers do what they did. They got about 6 good weeks of Russell Wilson, and then the whole thing fell apart, right? And they don't go back to Fields. I know that Aaron Rodgers played really well in this game, and I think that he's probably over the course of a season a more overall effective, passer especially. But I do wonder if the Steelers are even wondering right now, like, man, what if we had rolled with Fields last year and he was still this team's starting quarterback? Now, Arthur Smith's offense isn't going to be as dynamic as probably what Engstrand wants to do here. He made it very clear. He wants to utilize, a lot of what Justin Fields does well. But it is interesting to see him play this much differently than he ever really has before this early in his Jets tenure. That's kind of the most interesting thing about that, I'd say. Dalton, let's go to you for your third one here, and then we'll bounce around.
So for my third, is the Panthers' regression. I think we were kind of expecting, the Panthers, especially against the Jags team, that I don't think we were expecting too much out of this year. I think we were expecting the Panthers to probably win that game, in my opinion, or at least look pretty good in that game. But really, Bryce Young went back to being the Bryce Young he was at the beginning of last season, which is just not really an NFL starting quarterback. So that's worrisome. Also, I think we're expecting, some growth from Chuba Hubbard and some of these receivers, and Hubbard just looks like a replacement level back. And the receivers, Tet McMillan looks pretty good, but that's about it. This team, this is not a good thing to say, but in the year 2025, this team looks like it misses Adam Thielen. And it's not good. So, yeah, I'm just very surprised that the Panthers just looked as rough as they did.
Yeah, I will say, I think that this is another game I watched back, right, because I wanted to see kind of how bad this really was. I got to give a lot of credit to the defense of the Jaguars. They were playing some phenomenal football. Like, Bryce wasn't good, but I don't think he was. And I pushed back a little bit on the beginning of last year, Bryce Young. His numbers looked a lot like beginning of year Bryce Young. I don't think he looked like that as a player in this game. I think the results were just closer to that. Like, he had the 2 interceptions. It is what it is with that. You're trying to come back in the game. I think overall, like, I'm not super worried about Young, like, regressing back to that version of himself, but I am worried about whether this offense is going to allow him to grow as a player. Because last year he ended things on a heater. He was making things happen. He might be able to do some of that stuff consistently, but probably not to that same level that he did last year. More of the production has to come from players actually just straight up winning as receivers, right? And that just didn't happen in this game. And I do wonder if, until like Coker gets back, and who knows if he can be as good as he was last year as an undrafted player, I just wonder if that's all they really have. Like, Leggett just doesn't look like the guy that I was hoping he would be for this team this year. I'm not going to write them off yet, but that's my bigger concern with this team is, like, do they have enough around Bryce for him to play the way he did last year and actually get the help from the guys and not just do it himself? So, but it was a rough outing for sure. But anything you want to add there, Zach?
No, you guys covered everything there.
Yeah,
they didn't look great, but I don't think that's to take a bit away from the Jaguars, because they did play a great game.
They did, I thought. Yeah.
But yeah, we'll have to see how, like, the next couple of weeks go, and if, like, Bryce Young's able to, like, snap out of it and, like, get back to where he was at the end of last season.
Yeah. Zach, what is your third thing here, and then I'll finish up.
My third thing is going to be how good the Green Bay Packers looked, especially over the Detroit Lions. And man, just offense was humming, defense looked great. What an addition to have Micah Parsons on the defensive side of the ball.
Pretty nice if you can do it, huh?
And exactly. So you can't complain if you're them. It was a really great week 1. And you're sitting pretty on the top of the AFC, and probably, or not the AFC, the NFC North, and probably looking like more comfortable after watching the rest of the. Obviously dogged the the dog the Lions, but after watching that Vikings and Bears game, you come off feeling a little bit better.
Absolutely, yeah. I think for me with that game, it was very clear from the get-go that the Lions' rushing attack is not the same with the offensive line changes and with probably the coordinator changes, right? Like the running backs don't look any worse for wear. Like I think they, as players, look fine. I don't think this offensive line is going to allow them to do the same things that he did, that Ben Johnson was doing there. And realistically, if that run game isn't going to be what it was with Ben Johnson, I think it hurts Jared Goff in a lot of ways. Like you saw, like the overall numbers don't look too putrid, but like they just didn't do anything in this game on offense until very late for the most part, right? Like they just didn't get a whole lot of anything going. So I'm curious whether or not that looks a lot different here next week, and we'll be talking about that in a little bit. At least I will be. That's one of my things that we'll talk about. But it is going to be interesting to see if the Lions can get this thing rolling again.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't really have this as a surprise just because I was pretty high on the Packers going in.
Me too. I was expecting them to win this game. So,
and I was kind of low on the Lions going in as well, just because I just think they're due for some regression. But no, the Packers, I think they kind of really kind of made a big statement with this win. That like, yeah, we're gonna be legitimate Super Bowl contenders. I think it's very clear after this week that there's a pretty clear top two in the NFC with the Eagles and Packers. I think Tampa Bay is lurking there as like maybe a possible threat. I just don't know if they are as complete of a team top to bottom as the top two. But man, the Packers, I mean, they look pretty good. And that was even with not getting the running game really going too much in that game. Mm-hmm. They still looked really good. I mean, that defense needed 1 star on the front seven to really put things together, and now they have it.
Yeah, absolutely. My last thing here, before we get to our things to watch out for next week, Greg Roman may have beaten the allegations. That Chiefs-Chargers game, the passing game with Justin Herbert, I mean, can you ask for a whole lot better from Justin Herbert in the passing game than you did against the Chiefs? I understand they have some stuff they're working on defense. They're replacing some important guys. That was an absolute, like, if you are someone who believes in Justin Herbert as one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, as I do, that's the game you point to people and go, tell me exactly where you see a guy who can't do everything at the quarterback position. And then on top of that, with the way that they just basically said, hey, Justin, this game is yours. We're going to put the ball in your hands when the game matters the most. We're going to ask you to make the plays. That is what a coach, and he might want to take some notes from his brother, the Ravens coach might want to take some notes from his brother in LA. Put the ball in the hands of your quarterback, who's an alien, when the game is on the line. Like, allow him to be the difference in the game. That's what they did, and they came away with a win for it. And I think Greg Roman deserves a lot of credit for building out a passing game that is way more dynamic already than it really ever was at any point last year. And also, before I throw it to you guys, any thoughts you have on it, shout out Quentin Johnston for at least being a valuable player this year, potentially, for this team, because he's getting used a lot more effectively now that they kind of have a beat on what he can do as a player. So,
yeah. No, I'll talk more about this game later when we get to the second part of this, but I am very glad that the Justin Herbert slander might finally be ending, because as someone who's watched them just torch their team over the last several years, and just seen him do all kinds of ridiculous shit that makes no sense. He's a freak. He's very talented. He's just happened to spend most of his career with the worst head coach in the NFL. One of the worst head coaches in NFL history.
Yeah, Brandon Staley was certified butt, so
yeah. Horrible. But no, Justin Herbert's a fringe top 5 quarterback in the league. Honestly, he's probably the 5th best quarterback in the league. Sorry, Jalen Hurts people. Justin Herbert's probably the 5th best quarterback in the NFL.
Yeah, we didn't get to do it, but we might have to do like maybe a mid-season version of this. But I had a quarterback tier list that I took a quiz, like one of those quizzes that bills out a tier list for you.
Yeah.
Let's just say Jalen Hurts is not near the top of that, and not someone I had to knock down to put Herbert up more. But that's beside the point. Anyway, Zach, any thoughts on Chargers and what they look like against the Chiefs?
No, it was really good to see. I was expecting more from Omarion Hampton, as if you looked at my fantasy teams.
He'll get there. The touches are there.
But yeah. But it was good to see them like have a really good game. I mean, I was always a Herbert fan coming out of college. I didn't necessarily like buy into the he's a nerd, he's soft spoken, all that stuff. Like I was like, no, it's there. Like the traits are there.
You see the dude throw the football. Like I don't know what to tell you. Like
yeah. So like it was nice to see. Like I mean, like you said, Jim Harbaugh. That's what we know that he does. Is he gets you going. So we'll see how it continues to go for them the next couple of weeks. But also with that game, how crazy, not how crazy, but just how much the Chiefs struggled was
interesting.
We'll have
to monitor that certainly moving forward. Let's move over to things we're watching out for in week 2. I'll throw us out here again. This is again continuing the conversation about the Jets here a little bit. How did the Jets follow up their surprise performance against the Bills this week in week 2? The Bills defense looks susceptible, to say the least. Now, I understand it's the Ravens, and they do that to people. And if it wasn't for the fact that Derrick Henry mercifully fumbled the football, and also, again, John Harbaugh is a coward, if it wasn't for those two things, Ravens probably win the game, right? So I understand that. However, this Bills defense against the run doesn't got it, in my opinion. And a Jets team that just took it to the Steelers, who granted also have had their issues with run defense at times the past couple of years, and was down Derek Harmon, who they're hoping will help with that a little bit. I wonder if they can replicate that success, at least on the ground. Now, the passing game is another thing. We'll see if Fields can look the same there, and I'm very curious to see if he can replicate his performance against the Steelers. However, the ground game is what I'm most interested to see, because if they can run again like they did against the Steelers, against a Bills team that just showed that you can run on them, granted, again, it's Derrick Henry, Lamar Jackson, blah, 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 whatever. That is really going to be telling thing for this Jets offense moving forward, because if the defense could just figure some stuff out, which Aaron Glenn's there, you hope they could do that, this team could at least be fun down the stretch of the season. Maybe it'll take a while for it to get there, but they could at least be very watchable this season.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that'll be a very interesting game. A lot of interesting divisional matchups this week. That's one of them because I think they can give the Bills a game, and I think the Bills are going to have a little bit of a hangover after. I mean, that barn burner of a game. Like whenever you play a game like that, especially in prime time, I feel like it's hard not to have a little bit of a letdown after that game when you just have such an emotional roller coaster of a game.
Josh do be doing some stupid shit against the Jets every year, though, too, as well. So that's something you got to think about. But maybe that's not the case anymore. Zach, any thoughts on that?
Well, yeah, and I think the fact that after watching both of those games, the fact that Buffalo is favored by a touchdown, that's crazy. Like, the Jets did not play that bad.
No, they did.
The defense looked good. I mean, Sauce Gardner on the shadow plan is what we'll call it, I guess. That was great. And
he
was
wasn't
able
the problem.
to lock down DK.
He wasn't the problem. It was just when they threw a screen to DK, he would just juke the first guy and then run for 40 yards. It's pretty funny, but whatever.
But you don't have to worry about that with the Bills. Like, he should be able to lock down Shakir, no problem.
Well, he'll probably be on Coleman after the season or after the game he had. I would guess he's going to shadow him, bigger body guy too. But generally speaking, it should be a little bit harder for them to capitalize on that type of thing. So
so like I'm expecting a more surprising and competitive game than maybe many people are thinking. I think the Jets are going to give the Bills a run for their money.
Yeah. Dalton, what is your first thing you're watching out for in week 2?
So my first thing is actually the last thing that'll happen this week. Monday Night Football, Raiders-Chargers. I think it's going to be a ton of fun.
It should be.
The Raiders, I think we're going to try to find out if they're legit in any way, shape, or form. Even if this game is close, I'll believe the Raiders might be something this year. But I think it's going to be interesting because I do wonder if they're going to be able to, as a team that looked very susceptible to blitzes, going to probably struggle against the Chargers' blitz-happy defense. But Geno Smith's going to make that secondary pay if they do bring everybody. And I think this could be a very high-scoring game. The Raiders' secondary actually looked better than expected last week, but I think they're going to have their hands full this week with the Chargers. And I think this could be a really, really fun game. I think we could have a little bit of a shootout. It's going to be a lot of fun. Plus, we get what I always think is what's quickly becoming one of the most fun head-to-head player matchups in the league right now: Brock Bowers versus Derwin James.
Oh yeah, that should be.
That's
fun.
Box office right there.
It certainly will be a lot of fun. I had the same thing with Kelsey and him for a while there too, so that's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Zach, I want to let you have thoughts on that one first, if you have any.
This is gonna be primetime television. I'm excited to see how both teams grow off of their week 1 wins. And like Dalton said, I mean, if the Raiders are able to keep it close, I think you're really, really hopeful as a Raiders fan that this season won't necessarily be as bad as the past few. Maybe competing for a playoff spot, maybe getting in, sneaking in a wild card. That would be nice. But for the Chargers, I really want to see how things develop off of the week 1 win over the Chiefs, because that was a massive win. It was a huge win. Big statement to start the season off. And you start off 2-0 in this division. That's huge. That's massive. You start off and get this win, and the running game gets going a bit more. Things look a bit more like scripted to where what we are used to seeing for a Jim Harbaugh team. Let's see what happens. But it's going to be a really good game.
Yeah, I think the thing I'm most interested in seeing is, does the Raiders' offensive line come to play enough to let Genty actually do something? Because he was bottled up in a major way in week 1, and I don't really think it's much to do with him. Obviously, with the talent he is, I do think the Raiders' offensive line has to figure that out a little bit more, specifically with the run blocking, just to give that offense the balance that I think everyone wants it to have, for sure, including the coaching staff. Let's move on to – everyone did their first what to watch for, right, at this point? I want to make sure. Or did Zach?
No,
Zach, sorry. That's what I thought so. Okay, Zach, what's your first thing to watch out for this week?
So I'm going to keep it on prime time.
Okay.
But go to the Sunday night game. I am interested to see, because I don't feel like they look that bad. The Falcons played a really nice game. I thought that they looked really good. Got outbested by a better Tampa Bay team. Good, yes, exactly. And I want to see how they respond with like a really good performance from Michael Penix Jr. And with the Vikings looking, I would say, susceptible, because McCarthy was okay if you want to forget about the first 3 quarters. So like I'm interested to see what happens. But I definitely feel like the Falcons can be on the up. And like they look promising. I think they look very promising in week 1.
I'm curious to see if, honestly, like, one, Penix can start to use his legs more like he did in this game. Obviously, he had the really fun touchdown run that gave them a lead until the Bucs took it back and ultimately won the game. But his maturation as a player, and whether or not he can, again, take advantage of the fact that he is a good athlete, he just never has really used it since his Indiana days. And then the other thing is, like, this rushing attack was just dreadful. Like, Bijan had the huge touchdown catch early in the game, but outside of that, he didn't do anything. Algier didn't do anything. They both had, double-digit carries, but only had 48 total yards. I understand Tampa's always one of the top run defenses with Vita Vea in there, and just the way Todd Bowles coaches that run defense, but they've got to have more balance. Like, Penix cannot throw 42 passes every week if they want to win games. Like, I don't care if he's playing good or not. So that's what I'm most interested in with that one. How about you, Dalton?
Yeah, you guys kind of said it. I mean, I just think, I'm still just not really sure what the Falcons are going to look like. I mean,
it's hard to know, right?
It's really, really hard. I mean, Penix is just kind of, I still refuse to kind of believe that he's going to be like a high end NFL starter. So he's got to prove it to me. I'm very curious to see what he looks like this week.
Yeah. What's your second thing then here, Dalton? You're looking out for
my second thing. So I'm staying with the AFC West, but not really. I mean, it's not really about this team, but it's more about the Colts. I want to see what the Colts look like versus, no offense, Zach, a real team.
Yes, a real NFL live football team.
Yeah. I think, as far as defense goes, I don't know if there's a bigger difference from Miami to Denver.
Yeah.
In terms of defenses. But yeah, it'll be very interesting. I think we're gonna find out, how much this whole Danny Dimes thing is for real. Now, I mean, this is not a game that I expect the Colts to win, but I'm just curious if they are even a little bit competitive in this game. It's kind of really all I'm looking to see. It'll be interesting though.
Good old Daniel Quarters. No. I'm really curious too because again, like the Colts offense, just from a rhythm standpoint and the way they're able to move the football down the field literally every time and score some amount of points. Like it's hard to really complain about anything that happened. Tyler Warren was phenomenal. I'm glad that they're tapping into him immediately. That was awesome to see. I do wonder like how much of it is playing a team that was basically dead out there, right? Like, and I hate to keep just heaping on it. It's like just piling it on and just shoveling it in. But at some point, it's like, come on, like when Storm Duck going out's a problem for you, we're having issues out there. Like that's not awesome if that's the world we're living in. So we'll see if the Colts are for real on offense. I think the defense, again, the Dolphins did a lot of damage to themselves in that game, but the Colts defense certainly helped them along with that process. So, and I'll wait for it later because I have some thoughts on it. But the Broncos offense was a little weird to say the least in week one. So we'll talk about that in a second. Any thoughts on that though, Zach, beyond what I said?
Yeah, no, it's going to be interesting to see what the Colts have in the literally I don't think that last week was a really good litmus test to know what you should expect as a Colts fan for the season. So against actual a competitive defense, we'll see what happens with how they perform and what they should expect for the rest of the season. But I think this is really going to be your first week where you're like, okay, this is where the rest of the season is going to go for Indianapolis.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Zach, what is your second thing here?
My second thing here is talking about how do the Lions respond? Because week one was horrible. I think it was about as bad as you could go. You went from being on the top of the division to just really being battered around by the Packers, and the offense didn't look great. Jared Goff looked bad. The blocking looked horrible, especially the interior offensive line. The defense looked a little bit better. So I mean, give them that a little bit, but I mean, the passing offense still wasn't positive. I mean, the passing defense. So how do you respond after and to a Bears offense that looks susceptible to staying cold and not having necessarily as much success? What do you do in week two to turn things around and get back to the Dan Campbell brand of football?
Absolutely. It's a big story. Dalton, I'm going to let you go on this one here first because my second thing has a lot to do with this game as well. So I want to let you get your thoughts in here.
So we're on the Lions game.
Yes, there's the Lions.
Yeah,
what they do
so this is actually on my list as well.
Okay.
I'm very interested in the Ben Johnson homecoming game. I think that's just a fun storyline. I think really though, it's just which of these teams. I think these teams are about as close together as they've been in the last couple of years, Bears and Lions. I think, the Bears are trending in the right direction a little bit. And I don't think the Lions are trending. I think Lions are kind of trending in the wrong direction a little bit. And I'm just curious to see how close that gap has gotten now with Ben Johnson jumping over from Detroit to Chicago. So I think that's the thing I'm looking for is, how close is the gap now?
Yeah, and just to kind of jump in on this too, we can get this game kind of covered really well. Just the Dan Campbell, Ben Johnson reunion will be telling for both teams. I think how the Bears look offensively against the Lions defense that looks a little bit more susceptible than it did last year, especially considering they're healthy as we're talking right now, at least. And how does the Lions offense respond to being pretty much shut out for the most part until that really nice, admittedly, Isaac Tesla touchdown at the end of the Packers game? Like, can they get the run game going? Are they able to get Goff more comfortable? Like, can the pass protection settle in when they've lost a bunch of guys on that offensive line? Just a ton of things to watch out for in this game that, again, I think will be really telling for both teams' seasons this year. Like, how much better can the Bears get on offense? How much of the Lions' success past couple years can be replicated without the guys there anymore, right? Like all of that, I think, is going to be really important to find out for both teams this early on. But that covers all of our second things then here. I'll go with my third one here. And this one's more of just kind of a general question, and I have some specific thoughts, and I'm curious if you guys have some as well. What really are the Broncos? Like, what are we going to get from this team? Because the defense was just advertised, and again, it's against a Tennessee team that doesn't have a lot going on offensively. To be fair, Cam was kind of struggling out there to just exist, and I'd say he played okay considering the environment he was within, but they just couldn't pass protect. They couldn't do much of anything at all offensively. So the defense very good. Bo Nix was pretty atrocious for 90% of the game against a Tennessee defense that has a little bit more talent on it this year, but is not world beaters by any means. And I think a lot of it was that Sean Payton wants to find out if he can actually be the reason they win and not brought along for the most part, right? Can he do more than just do the conservative things, hit a couple big plays occasionally, do all that stuff? Oh, we may have lost Zach there. We'll see if we get him back. But can he be more than the quarterback he was last year? Because the quarterback he was last year was good enough to get them in the playoffs, but it wasn't good enough to do anything against a team like the Bills and some of these other AFC powerhouses. He needs to be a bigger part of things if they want to get through a playoff series, or not playoffs, get through the playoffs with this defense as good as it is. His first test at doing so went about as poorly as it could go. So I'm very curious how they respond in week 2.
Yeah. I mean, I think I just don't think he's ever going to be that guy. And as someone that was very high on Bo Nix, I think he's a guy that you don't want throwing the ball 40 times a game. I mean, he's a guy you want throwing 25 to 30 times a game, executing, especially off play action. Because I think what the Broncos are this year, they're basically the same team they were last year with a better running back and somehow maybe an even better defense than last year, which is kind of crazy.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's really like what it is. I mean, the only real upgrade on offense is that RJ Harvey, I think, is a step up over Javonte Williams.
Yeah.
Which, isn't that hard to do. Having a pulse will kind of do that. Although Javonte Williams, can't hate on him too much. Looks pretty good this week.
They got those 2 touchdowns, 1 yard out. Yeah. Woo, we love it, fantasy. No.
But yeah, I think I think the Broncos, I mean, this was a good game to try to see if, you could rely on Bo Nix, because
you can get away with it.
You can get away with it against Tennessee, but you can't like actually like make that your offense. And I don't think the plan is to do that. I think it was just, good to like make Bo Nix try to do that though, because there's going to be some times when you run into teams like Baltimore and Buffalo where he will have to do that because the defense won't be able to hold those teams necessarily to under 20 points. So I think it was good to see it, but I mean, the Broncos, I think, they're about where they were last year, maybe a step above. It just depends on how elite the defense is. I mean, really, It comes down to is their defense for that team to really be a contender. The defense will have to be historically great.
Yeah, and again, and I want to get your thoughts on the Bo Nix and just Broncos situation in general, Zach. But I think that they want him to be a bigger part of it if he can be, because that's how they take the next step beyond just being even better on defense and maybe getting lucky in a couple playoff games. But that's kind of, again, part of the problem with being a team in the AFC is, for the most part, if you aren't a team that is just so unbelievably well constructed, or you have an alien at quarterback, which half the freaking conference feels like it does nowadays. It's just really hard to win a playoff game, right? Like my team certainly knows that. I mean, we never even began to make the Ravens sweat last year in the playoffs, right? Like, and that they might be the worst of the playoff like elites because they at least don't get to the freaking championship game ever, and we still couldn't do anything against them. Like it just, I am very curious in general. Like, what does this look like if they keep asking Bo Nix to do this type of stuff? Because just to give you guys an idea, and again, you could take this or leave it, whatever. It's because it's a PFF thing, right? Turnover worthy plays last year for him. In all of the games he played in, he had 13 turnover-worthy plays, very low turnover-worthy play rate. He had 4 turnover-worthy plays just in this game, which is almost a quarter, like a third of what he had all of last year. That's just not going to work if they're going to ask him to try to play in a way that creates those situations for him. And I just hope that they learn quickly, like, let's just try to incrementally get this thing better and not be like, hey, Bo, let's see how much you can air it out here. Like, that's what I'm hoping we see against the Colts here. Any thoughts on that one, Zach, before we move
on? No, not really. It was definitely, I think that Bo Nix was one of the quarterbacks that we were gonna see some regression from this season, especially after last season. I feel like it was a bit hit or miss. His yeah, he had a good season, but like a good season in terms of I think what people were expecting from him, which was not a lot. So like, yeah, your season was good, but like we weren't expecting you to be amazing. So like this regression is not necessarily surprising, but it's going to be interesting to see how the Broncos respond from this throughout the rest of the season if it becomes a problem for the offense, because like this week it wasn't, but who knows next couple of weeks when you play the Chargers or the Eagles or the Bengals, like that's going to be a lot different for your offensive output.
Yeah, and one thing before I move on, I'm going to have you go next year, Zach, with your last one. The most concerning part of it for me, like especially because I did watch I didn't get to watch the game back, but some of the highlights and some of the notable moments here. His average depth of target was only 6.6, which was about 1.5 yards lower than his average last year. It's smaller sample size, and he still was having turnover-worthy plays. Like he wasn't even necessarily like bombing down the field and having it happen. Like he just again needs to clean stuff up, and I think he will. I mean, it's Sean Payton offense. I don't think he's going to crater or anything like that, but just interesting to see the way they tried to deploy him in week 1 here. But Zach, what is your last thing you want to watch out for week 2?
My last thing that I want to watch out for is Miami. How do you respond to playing?
You are a stronger person than me, Zach. I would just not be watching the game. I was kidding.
Well, I mean, because look, you can't pack it in.
No, you can't.
Like that's ridiculous. And you are technically favored in this game by 1.5 points, which is astonishing. Which is just astonishing. So what are you gonna do? What's the game plan? What are you gonna do differently this week that's gonna be a massive change from the game plan that you had a week ago, and nothing really seemed like it worked. You didn't have any success on offense. You didn't have any success on defense. So you like Mike McDaniel, you're back at the drawing board. What are you doing this week that's different that you can look like a respectable NFL team?
Can I be honest with you, Zach? The answer is nothing.
What?
They're not going to do anything different because they can't. They're at a point where there's nothing different to do, like realistically. Like what you can't ask the offense to operate differently. The entire setup.
Zach Wilson, come on down.
Sure, let's just let Zach Wilson be worse at the Tua stuff, and like maybe he'll run around and like I don't know, throw the ball 50 yards down the field, and something might happen. But like
Quinn Ewers, come on down.
I beg you to put Quinn Ewers in the game so I can hate watch that team. Anyway, I just think the problem ultimately, Zach, and this is the issue with the team, is that I would love it if they did something different. They physically can't. They set up the team to operate in one way, and that one way got absolutely shit on against a team that can actually play defense at all. And I just wonder if the Patriots, who granted have their issues, especially if Gonzalez isn't out there. This is still a team that has a lot of pride on defense. I have a hard time thinking they're going to just get absolutely shit on by the same game plan that the Dolphins have been running for 4 years. Like, I just don't know if I care about that as an option. I hope it happens. Again, what it would be, couldn't tell you. Maybe it's handing the ball to Ollie Gordon 75 times. I don't know. But beats me. But Dalton, any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I'm ready for Ollie Gordon. Someone like
Yeah.
that, like, thinks he might sneaky be like an NFL running back.
He's better than I think people who watched him last year thought he's going to be. I will say that.
Yeah,
I liked him a little bit, yeah.
To be fair, like, I've been watching a lot of Oklahoma State offense tape lately just because the only tape to get ready for a show I was doing about Arkansas's prospects, the only tape that's available is the Arkansas-Oklahoma State game. So I've watched it about
50 times,
about 20 times. And yeah, the Oklahoma State offense is cooked. I mean, Mike Gundy is done. He needs to retire. It's really bad. And I think that's why Ollie Gordon kind of fell down draft boards. But I think he's going to be legit. And the thing is, they have two really good backs between him and Achane.
Yeah.
They just need to find a way to actually run the ball. But the problem is they don't really have an offensive line. So if they can find a way to get that going and get the blocking going, you know, Alec Ingold's still there, right?
Yeah. I mean, he's their number one receiver, it felt like sometimes in that game.
Put that big contract to work and make him make the running game work.
There was a play where, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about, Zach, where so Tua looks to his right and Tyreek Hill is wide ass open in the flat. And instead of taking that easy completion, he turns it down and throws a dig route to Alec fucking Ingold, who is like triple covered on the play. That's the issue, right? Is Tua's like, oh, I gotta throw that dig route, buddy. I gotta throw it. And it's like, Tua, you don't. That's a fullback running that route, and Tua and Tyreek is open. Please don't. And then he did it, and at least it wasn't an interception, but it should have been. So.
Why is Alec Ingold running dig route?
That's a whole other problem. I don't want to talk about that at all.
Was McDaniel high when he made that play?
He thought he could sneak him in there, sneak him in there. No one's expecting Alec Ingold to run the digger out. Let's let Tyreek out of the backfield, which would have been awesome if they threw the ball to Tyreek, but they didn't. So there's that. Anyway,
that's why he was mad.
Yeah, I'd be mad too if I had to watch that happen. When it's like I did the thing to it, he was open, and to was like, but the dig, it's like I don't fucking care about the digger out. Anyway, Don, what is your last?
So my last thing, I know I've been very AFC West heavy with this, but
makes sense.
With it, are the Chiefs going to start the year 0-2?
Oh, that's fun. Yeah,
that's a real concern. They're playing the Eagles this week, which is going to be the game of the week by far.
You hope so, but it also might be really tough to watch. There's a real possibility it's not fun.
Yeah, true. With the Eagles did not. The Eagles didn't look great. They could not throw the ball down the field at all.
They did one time. They threw the ball beyond 8 yards one time, and it was the 51-yarder to freaking what is it? I can't remember his name right now, but the third receiver for them.
Oh, Jahan Dotson?
Yeah, Dotson, right? Yeah.
Jahan Dotson.
Yeah, the only time it threw past 8 yards.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on there. If it was just more, Dallas's secondary, or if there's something up there, but I don't know. It didn't look great, and also the defense looked a little shaky.
It's happened when your best player spits on the quarterback. So whatever.
Yeah, no. That game started out like you were wondering if the Eagles were about to have like a cursed season, and then they still ended up winning the game.
Yeah.
I guess Dallas team actually looked pretty good, but I'm very curious to see what it looks like. Their secondary is kind of the biggest question with the Eagles. Problem is the Chiefs can't take advantage of it because they have no receivers if Xavier Worthy is out.
The only receiver who might have been good got absolutely fucking dump trucked by their tight end because he ran the route wrong or whatever happened there. So that's fine.
It's not good there, but even Juju might be able to have success against Adoree Jackson if Adoree Jackson.
Shout out Juju Smith-Schuster, still doing it.
Yeah, an old USC battle actually. Juju Smith-Schuster and Adoree Jackson. I think they might have been teammates.
They probably were. I'm pretty sure they were. Juju, weirdly enough, is like 28 still or something like that. It's kind of hilarious because he was so young coming out. But I think they may have played together. I think
on the Sam Darnold USC teams.
Oh, that's one of the teams that's of all time. Yeah, I don't know about that. Yeah, honestly, I think that the Chiefs, until guys are come back, until Spags has time to beat the defense into these young players that have to play right now, they might be a tough watch for the first 6 weeks of the season. Now, will they ultimately figure it out? Yes, because it's the Chiefs. Will it happen fast enough for them to have the free ride into the AFC Championship they usually get? I don't think so. And that's where things get real interesting.
Yeah, because they're going to have to play both Baltimore and Buffalo this year if they want to actually make it to the Super Bowl.
Probably. So we'll see how that plays out. But it is very interesting. Also, again, Jalen Hurts, I really I'm going to say this because I really, truly like him as a player. I think there's a lot of things he does really well. You can't tell me, as a fan of any NFL team, especially the Eagles, you can't tell me that tape he put out last year and this year so far in the one game gets him anywhere close to where you people keep trying to put him as an NFL quarterback.
Absolutely.
I'm not having that shit. You can't fool me, Eagles fans. I know what's going on. He's a good player. And in this system, when it's working, it's really effective because of what he does as a runner, especially, and all that good stuff. And you have a pass protection that is ungodly. I get it. He's cool. He does all the stuff that you want your franchise quarterback to do. He's not a top 10 quarterback for me. He just isn't. And I'm fine with that because he doesn't have to be. That's the whole point. You didn't have to find Josh Allen because you don't need Josh Allen. You built the fucking Avengers around the guy that's to me, I had him 14th, I think, is where I had him at his preseason quarterback ranking. And you could switch him anywhere with the guys 3 ahead of him or whatever. I'm not going to harp on that, but it doesn't matter, right? You saw that team did everything they could to lose and they still won because it's the Eagles, right? That's ultimately what it comes down to. Any thoughts on this game, Zach, before we head out?
No, not really. The Eagles looked. There's obviously some kinks to work out, but they still looked okay. You were missing your best player, so that whole situation was just kind of strange. So we'll see what happens when they're full go. But it was definitely a very interesting week one from the Kansas City Chiefs. And how do you respond when you're weeks away from having Rashee Rice, Xavier Worthy might be out for the season? You got to figure something out because, like we just said, do you want to be the AFC team that has to sit there and go through both Buffalo and Baltimore? If you just have to go through one, that's one thing. But going through both, that's going to be tough.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, but that'll do it for us this week. That's everything that we were looking forward to next week and all the things we thought were interesting from week one. For the most part, there's plenty we could talk about, but we don't need to make these shows 4 hours long because we probably could if we wanted to. But next week, we'll be doing something probably similar to this. Is kind of the format that I want to run with for the most part, guys. Also, real quick, you already mentioned yours, Zach. Blocking tight ends are back, Dalton. Any thoughts on that you want to throw out there? Why that's your tagline today?
Oh, yeah. Look at all the scores around the league. It's run heavy, 12 personnel is back.
Yes,
we're running 12 personnel. We have blocking tight ends scoring touchdowns.
Yeah.
A fair amount this week. The traditional tight end is coming back. Unfortunately, at the college level right now, no one's being taught how to block at tight end because they're all just getting recruited at 7-on-7 tournaments.
I would argue that they're barely teaching anyone to block at the college level anymore, but that's a whole other problem for another day.
Yeah.
So it's going to be very interesting to see how the league reconciles that. But, I think, we talked about on the draft show, Jackson Hawes.
Oh, yeah, big time.
That's the new tight end of the NFL. That's the modern NFL tight end right now.
Yeah, you love it. 11. Yeah, that dude rocks. We'll see how much he makes an impact for the Bills. But that'll do it for us this week. We'll be back next week. Should be the same time. I'm going to try to keep it consistent, 8:30 on Tuesdays. But definitely check out our betting show as well tomorrow on this channel. I have some unfortunate things to talk about with my particular picks. Also, hate to break to everybody, my 16-legger, if you watched last week, didn't hit. Of course, I'm here on the pod, so it did not hit. Immediately got washed because Jalen Carter spit on Dak Prescott, which hilarious. But I actually did all right, I think, and we'll talk about it tomorrow. But I think I was 10 of 16 on this pick, so felt pretty good about it.